guys, welcome to the meat and potato video. I'm calling this the meat and potatoes video because this is going to be very intense. I'm not going to do a lot of talking like I did in the other two videos. I'm going to do a lot of doing, and I'm going to do a lot of showing. And the reason I think that's going to be important for you is because I think once you hear what I'm actually talking about, I think that'll turn on the light and that'll it'll trigger something in you to be like, oh, okay, this is how I actually get to that next level. You know how in the other video, what I talked about before was, once you get it, it's like riding a bike. This will kind of be that moment. This will kind of be like your feet are on the pedals. You're starting to get the handlebars in order, and you're starting to get your balance in order. And out of nowhere, you'll just be like, yeah, I got it. I'm riding this bike. And I promise, once you get to that feeling, it feels so good, and you really won't ever be able to go back. And I really think it'll make you a better musician because you'll be able to start listening to tone and diagnose, okay, what is the problem I'm missing, and start to move forward from that. So quick recap, if you haven't watched the other two videos, stop this video right now, go back and watch the other two videos. You really need them. I know they're super boring. It's just me talking. I don't want to listen to myself talk all the time either, but it's really important, kind of like philosophy of mixing stuff to get you going here. And I won't be explaining a lot of what I did in those videos. I'm just gonna be doing. So you'll miss out on a lot, and you probably will just be lost. And like I said before, you'll hate me and you'll hate yourself because your mix still sounds like trash. And I don't want that. I want your mix to sound amazing. So make your mix amazing, watch all the videos. Okay, let's recap the 5 things. Too loud, too quiet, too low, too much low end, too much high end, too dry. So I'm gonna start with the keys. I'm gonna solo these out. I'm going to bring that level down, make sure it's at 75. Okay, so right away I think I hear 2 problems. It's too low, and the stereo placement of it is in the center. Here's why that's bad. Stereo placement is important because what stereo means is 2. It means left and right. And here's why that's important. You have a left ear and you have a right ear. Now, when you're singing at home, you're singing and you're in the bathroom and you sound like Christina Aguilera and it sounds awesome. And then you come in here and, you put one ear in and you're like, I don't like how my mix sounds. So I'm just going to pop one ear out and I'm just going to sing and do my thing. Or maybe you're on the electric guitar and you do the same thing because, you want to hear the people and you want to feel like part of the room. And here's why that's bad. You're designed to hear one source at a time. When you hear a lot of sources, imagine you're walking through a downtown city or something, and there's all these noises coming from all over the place. It starts to become overstimulating because you just weren't designed to hear all those things at once, and that's really how a lot of hearing damage happens. It's not necessarily from one loud source. It's actually from a ton of different sources compiling together, and that's what kind of gives you that headache feeling or that nauseous feeling of like just get me out of here. This is too much noise right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference between mono, which is 1, and stereo, which is 2. So right now, this is in mono, and it is center. And what that means is this piano is going to be right here. It's going to sound like it's right in my face, and it's going to sound like right here. But once I start to spread it, you'll start to see how it starts to move outside to the sides. And again, make sure you're listening with your in-ears in the laptop. I'm telling you, it's the best way to do it. But listen to how, once I start to spread it, suddenly you have such more openness and more clarity in the mix. Let's listen. See how compressed it sounds? Whoa. It is game changing. And I'm going to put up on the either on the screen or I'm going to attach some sort of file for you. There are a lot of different instruments that are stereo, and if those don't look exactly like this, they're not going to sound good. They should all look like this. Some of you, I know you'll kind of do this thing, or you'll go in like this. I would say if you have a stereo instrument, pan it all the way out. Do not do any of this. You don't need to. Leave it all the way out. Why? Because your ears perceive sound in extremes. How do you know if something is wide? Well, because you heard it center. How do you know if something's center? Because you heard it wide. I just showed you. Look again. Listen again. you know that's center because you heard it wide. And now you know why it sounds bad. And you know it's wide and good because you heard what it sounds like when it was bad. So that's that. The other thing I heard when I was listening was there's too much low end, and you can see this tone knob was cranked all the way to the bass. And so I'm going to actually turn it to a little bit more up. And I don't know if I explained this in the other video, but treble is another way of saying too much high end or too little high end. So remember how I was saying too much low end or too much high end? In this, there's too much low end. So I need to give it more high end. So watch how I balance that out too. You hear how good that feels? It's open. It's full, you know, it's not too much of anything. And some of you may not have known that I actually go bass towards a lot of my sounds because there are a lot of instruments that have a lot of low-end information, and I don't want them to necessarily be so trebly and harsh. I want them to be nice and full. I want it to sound how it should sound. So let me do a quick back and forth of everything I just did. So I'm going to crank the bass down. I'm going to crank this to center. And let's listen. Immediate change. Two knobs. Stereo placement, tone. And it can really, really, really change how you listen to things. Okay, so that's stereo placement and tone. I want to talk about reverb. Let's go back to the whole you're practicing in your room kind of thing. Or actually even better, you're singing in the shower. You're up there. It's in the morning. You're feeling good. You sound like Christina Aguilera, and then you come to church and you plug in your ears and you plug them both in, and you're like, man, it just sounds so dry. It doesn't sound like I'm in my bathroom. Like I sounded so good there. Why don't I sound good? Well, that's because what's happening is you're cutting out the room. You're putting headphones in directly into your ear, and now you're not getting any atmosphere sound or any room sound. You're not getting any reverb. You're getting dry sound. And really, this shows up mostly on the vocals, but sometimes it shows up on other instruments. I wouldn't put reverb on the keys at all, but I would actually put reverb on a lot of instruments that maybe people don't know how to think of. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to add some reverb into the mix, and I'm also going to adjust with the stereo placement, and I'm going to choose 3 instruments. And I bet that even, remember our bad mix? Here, let's go back to our bad mix. Man, that's bad. I'm going to go back to our bad mix, and I just heard it. I know what the foundation of the mix is, and watch how I build it around real quick. And I'll try to talk myself through it as well so that it makes sense to you. Okay, so I'm going to start. Actually, I'm going to mute everything real quick, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I have everything muted now, and as you can see, I've muted almost everything except for the drums, the keys, and actually, sorry, I meant to leave that for vocal too. And watch how I get a really awesome sound just by using 3 instruments and putting them in their right placements just off of what I hear. So I'm turning the drums all the way down, turn the vocals all the way down. Let's go vocal first. So mono instrument, so I'll bring her to the side. She needs some reverb, but she's too dry, too low. Turn her up. Let me give her some high end. She's too low, too much low end, too much bass. I think she sounds pretty good. Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the drums. Let's make that stereo. Here. Kick, snare. It needs more reverb. Yeah. Hear that reverb it's too dry. All right, now I'm gonna add that in. Drums are too loud now. Through a little bit more. I'm actually going to pan her. So right there, you know, what I did was I took a mono instrument, which is a vocal. Remember, mono means one, meaning it only gives one source. When somebody sings, they only have one voice. They don't have two. Whereas for something like the keys or something like the electric guitar, there's two sources. And again, just refer to that manual or that PDF file, whatever we put up. That'll help you see, okay, you know, these instruments, always put them in stereo, and these instruments, always put them in mono. One note about mono, the other thing is for the bass, I always put the bass mono and in the center. Again, remember what I was talking about, how do you know if something is wide? Because you heard it center. And how do you know if something's center? Because you heard it wide. I'm going to bring in the bass actually and listen to how I use the bass to kind of create a little bit more of like a center stuff. So I have like kind of almost the vocal in the center, almost the bass in the center, and then the drums and the keys are out wide. I can hear the keys. Too much bass, but I can hear the bass, and I can hear the drums, and I hear those. Ah, man, it's so good. It's so good. Why? Because now I'm starting to use the placement of the stereo field and the tone knob and the reverb to adjust and kind of put myself all back in that room. And the entire time I'm asking myself, okay, is it too low? Is it too quiet? Is it too much bass? Is it too much treble, too much low end, or too much high end? And then is it too dry? Does it need more reverb? And you know, you get a really, really great sounding mix here.
So we praise you, praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one, God of glory, majesty.
It's really wonderful when you can get it to happen. So now here's what's awesome. What I'm going to do in this next video that's coming up is I'm going to actually, it's the same bad mix you guys heard. I'm going to take it from scratch, what you guys heard it, all the way to like really, really good and kind of what I think is, you know, super dialed in. And I'll also give you a couple more kind of like more advanced tips in that next video. But if you're able to really understand stereo placement, the tone knob, and the reverb, you can get yourself a really good mix. Last thing I just thought about that I also want to make sure, one of the things we always want to make sure of is that you have the click on at all times. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the click. You know, I have my rule of thumb. I put the click mono in the center because it's mono. And like I said, if it's one, then it just should be in the center with the exception of vocals. And I'll explain that in the advanced video as well. But you can feel free to put the click in the right ear, the left ear, you know, kind of pan it hard where you want it. There is no real hard and fast rule. The important thing is that you're hearing the click on top of everything else because that's the thing that's ultimately guiding. So let's bring that click in and listen to that as well.
So we praise you, praise the Father, praise the Son,
I just want to listen to it like this. Yeah, it doesn't cut enough, so I'm going to put all the way treble. And then I'm going to actually back it off a little bit because I still want to feel the music, you know? Drums. I don't know, that sounds really, really good. So it's super easy. Use the tools, and again, like I said, chances are, you know, you'll probably walk in one day and you'll try everything. You'll try to remember all this, and it might not work the first time. You might have to like really like learn, but just remember the definitions. No more. It's too muddy, or it's too. I can't hear. Or it's too cloudy, or it's too harsh, or it's too. Instead, too loud, too quiet, too much bass or too much low end. Too much treble or too much high end, or is it too dry? I promise, if you use those 5 things and then use the stereo placement, the tone, and the reverb to adjust those, man, you will be Gucci. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.